Let's call the meeting to order. And I'm Harry Steinmetz, the Deputy Mayor. Let's just go around the room and introduce each other. Introduce yourself. We'll start with Colleen.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen Gantz, and I represent the Zenith community.
Hi, Terry Chase, South Des Moines. I'm Mary Ellen Laird, and I'm representing Central Des Moines. Bettina Carey, Marina District.
Paul Gustafson, Zenith.
Kirsten Hubbard, Marina Tenant.
Ken Oxford, City Council.
Eddie Duggar, North Central, but basically Des Moines, and basically Wesley.
Catherine Caffrey, I'm the city manager.
And Tracy will be here in about an hour. She had another appointment. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves over here.
Hi,
Victoria
Andrews, formerly Marina District, now scribe for the night.
Randy Williams, formerly of the Southern Territories. I've stepped down a couple of last year.
Chuck Coleman, formerly Redondo District.
Randy Weinstein, I'm his driver.
Okay.
Chauffeur.
Thank you. And so, a week ago we were worried about the apocalypse, and now we have paradise outside, but we're inside. But better safe than sorry. And at least there were some moments there that were pretty bad. And somebody's outside.
They'll get in.
Okay. Anyway, so we have finally configured, called the first meeting of the year, but there are several that their terms have expired, and so they're not official members, but I do want them to feel free to speak up and share, because
Homeowners down here.
there you go, not to feel excluded, even if ultimately we come to a vote on anything, you won't be allowed to vote. That's the only, as I see, is the real limitation of the night. But I think we also sent out a link for everybody to reapply. So, or if you know somebody who wants to apply to be on the Citizens Advisory, please encourage them. And we have several topics that we're going to discuss for the night. The one thing I heard loud and clear is that there was some frustration at just not being substantive enough, that people wanted to have more input on some substantive things, and one of those, so we have a couple of those on tonight. One is the committee structure that we've had for several years is just not working, and the committees don't feel like they're getting enough work to do, so they'll have 2 or 3 months of lots of work and then nothing for the rest of the year. So the thought was, and we need to talk about, can that be integrated into the Citizens Advisory Committee? We can create subcommittees, we can do all kinds of different approaches to this. And Catherine, our city manager, is going to kind of walk us through that discussion a little bit to see where we end up and what it is that the Citizens Advisory Committee wants to do. So that's our first subject for the night. Catherine?
Sarah, can you pull up that presentation? I mean, you have a copy in front of you, but I'll go through it too. It'll be the city, yeah. Yeah, it's city appointed.
Yes.
So as Deputy Mayor Steinmetz was saying, one of the things the council asked me to take a look at a few months ago was the committee structure. Not only for the city council's committees that they have, I think there's 5 or 6 of them, but also the appointive committees. Just sort of so everybody has the same kind of baseline, there are actually 9 appointive committees, so there's 7 that currently exist, of which this one is one of them. And I'm sorry, I called you all a council instead of Citizens Advisory Committee. I'm clearly used to writing council all the time, so sorry about that. But then also recently, the City Council chose to create 2 additional new ones, the Planning Commission and the Airport Committee. The Airport Committee, those applications for people to join, that should be posting later this week. And then the Planning Commission will get structured and put together later this year. So those are a total of 9 committees, and for a community of this size, that's like a lot of committees. And so what we were finding when I would talk to some of the members was that, sort of as the deputy mayor was saying, they were finding that they weren't always finding the role super fulfilling. Maybe they felt like, man, I have a lot of talents and things to give and it's not being tapped into. Or a couple groups felt like, well, I only meet like 2 or 3 months a year and then I never hear anything else. And we also have had a lot of people leave committees, I think, again, partially because, maybe they weren't feeling like enough of a role on it. So it was sort of a mixed bag. Additionally, I think you all are aware of the city's budget issues that we faced, and we had to reduce staff in several places. And so 3 of the staff that served some of these committees are no longer with the organization. So it felt like a good time to sort of restructure. So a couple of the committees we are not recommending any changes to. So there's some that are required by state code or seem to be working just fine as they were. So we're not looking at any changes to civil service, the lodging tax board, or the police advisory board. But we were looking at some of those others and whether or not we needed to modify them or combine them or create some type of larger group. So March 6th, I presented the council with a proposal to merge the Arts Commission, Human Services, and Senior Services into one new committee that would be called the Community Enrichment Board. And it would focus on those 3 areas with the addition of Parks and Rec programming, which right now we don't really have a group sort of giving us guidance or advice on that. The feedback we got from the council was really to rework this. They felt like that wasn't quite the right blend that they wanted. So, an idea we are throwing out tonight, and it is just an idea, is to sort of look at taking some of those groups and making them subcommittees to really this group. So that the Citizens Advisory Committee is really an even more active group, because not only are you doing what you currently do, which I know you have a budget presentation, you weigh in on sort of issues of community interest, but you are also sort of funneling as like the parent committee for some of these other groups that are a little more niche and maybe only meet several times a year, or they have, times that they're really active and then other times they're more quiet. So far I have met with Senior Services, Human Services, and 1 member of the Arts Subcommittee. I'm also working to meet with the others. And I've gotten sort of mixed feedback. Some of them are open to sort of becoming a subcommittee under the Citizens Advisory Committee. Others were a little hesitant, like, what does this mean? I don't want to be part of a huge group. So I think tonight I'm really looking just like for some feedback on you all as a committee. What do you think's working? What's not working? I also have this kind of other issue of these other little groups that maybe don't have a staff person to staff them. They need to feel, I think, more connected to a larger purpose. So yeah, I'm looking just for general feedback. You don't have to give me like a perfect solution tonight, but your input is helpful. And again, this is just an idea. Don't take it as a mandate.
So just to remind everybody, turn your pen.
I think this is a brilliant idea, as long as the subcommittees retain some form of autonomy. I think that those subcommittees structurally like almost a direct reporting to the Citizens Advisory, but that they pretty much already run really well. So just let them run like they normally do, and they will probably want to do it, right? But if we try to be overseeing, managing, I think that could be very disturbing to those that have been on these committees for long term, and they have very specific specialties that they, arts people are not human services people, although I have those backgrounds, right? So I'd be rare to be able to do any one of these other committees, but we need those carve-outs, those committees, those subcommittees need to exist independently, maybe reporting to, or, you know, just being a part of our meeting, for example, like one person of their subcommittee would come to our meeting and report out to somebody. Whether that was our presiding or someone that we selected amongst this group to be a chairperson, or maybe two people that would be a chairperson. So nothing that would, imply us being over them in any way. So it looks like we're over them, but we're really not. That's how I would say would be the way to run it. But I think it's brilliant structurally.
Like some kind of liaison sort of thing. So at first I was thinking, one of us could be assigned to each of those 5 committees, but maybe it's, 2 or 3 of us, or 2 or 3 of those, and then maybe, some of their liaisons come onto our committee too, because we don't always get a great attendance. Or, maybe to have more active participation that way. I think of them as liaisons, not like, chairing them, but representing on each committee. I agree with that.
Working and connecting, without being a specialist on any of them, because they are the specialists and they know how it works. But we could be that united voice that understands how this one doing that will affect that one and that one. Like, I mean, like the glue that holds them.
I think what could work is sort of, I like the idea of the liaison. So maybe there's some type of because a lot of them did say, I don't have an interest in anything beyond what I am doing. And so I think maybe there's a liaison from this group to those committees. Somebody from there also attends these meetings and reports out. And if we could make these meetings be the sort of central meeting for those topics, so this is the meeting that's posted, recorded, there's staff at, there's minutes at, and then these groups can meet maybe more informally and then report up. From an operational standpoint, that, selfishly is easier for us when I'm trying to kind of work with some limited resources. But that would mean then that on your agendas, there's maybe this standing item that's like these committee reports. So I just want to make sure, I see some head nodding if that's of interest or not.
Let me just make a suggestion, Gene, if you're up for it, because I know you haven't been well. The Human Services Subcommittee. Can you explain how that works so that everybody in the room kind of understands what they're doing? Because it's a fairly succinct job that they do, but they work pretty intensely for a few.
What they do is there's a call every year for, we're trying to do 1% of the budget goes towards human services. And it hasn't gotten that far for quite some time, but that's the ultimate goal. So what they do is they take all the applications from the different groups that are seeking funding, and they go through, verify what they've done before, find out what their proposals are, and then start ranking and start, reducing it down to some semblance of what we can afford to do. It's an incredibly intensive work. The members of that committee, most of them, I think their terms have expired. Well, expired. In the amount of work they do is incredible. And they all have backgrounds in social services. And so they can evaluate, whether or not this is a good fit for us, whether or not we're duplicating something. And I'm extremely impressed with that group. So, you know, if we can find some way to bring them all back on or something, it would be wonderful. Is that helpful?
Yeah, and like, the Arts Committee, they've not been very active lately, but they have been very active in in the past, determining the sculptures that are around our community right now.
Exactly.
And, you know, taking applications, figuring out, working, I believe, with some grant funding, to develop what goes up in this community. And so that can be sporadic or not. Gene?
Well, primarily what they do is they do the concerts in the park
That was,
in the summer. That's their big thing. Generally, when it comes to the arts thing, there's usually somebody else that's funding that, and they kind of coordinated for the city. But the biggest thing they do is concerts in the park.
and they used to do a big fundraiser down at,
You mean the Arts Gala?
yeah, the Arts Gala,
That was done in conjunction with the Legacy Foundation.
Right.
So,
but they would interact with the Legacy Foundation to help do that. And those are always good events that raise a fair amount of money, which then comes back to the community and filters through the Arts Subcommittee. Catherine, maybe can you give us a little bit more about what you think the Senior Services, the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee, and the Emerging Issues Subcommittee would be doing, so we have better context for the
Sure.
conversation?
And
then-
those are literally, I mean, I like made that up. So, like, these are not like mandates if you think, I don't think we need that, I think we need something else instead. Senior Services currently exists. What they do is some programming for seniors throughout the year. They do like a shred event. When I met with them, they all indicated they would like to be more involved in sort of, you know, helping bring back a volunteer program and things like that, which are not currently kind of part of their work plan, but I think if we can sort of re-energize that, you know, we could work that in. Parks and Recreation would be new, but this was some comments I'd actually gotten from Councilman Broxiger about, you know, we really don't have any way for people to give input on what programs and recreational opportunities we're providing. We frequently get the comment from people that have kids that we are not really meeting expectations on the amount of programming we're offering. And so I think this is a great way to sort of start that conversation. There's always a resource issue at the end of it, but like, let's start with getting some community input and finding out what the priorities are, so we're putting our dollars there. And then Emerging Issues was sort of something I just made up, but I thought really about what this group, my understanding is what this group's real kind of role and capabilities are. There are periodically things that come up in the community that it might be great to have a group to sort of go to and check in with. Like tonight, we're gonna be talking about the strategic plan. We'll be talking about that quite a few times. This is like the intro. But I mean, there are other things that come up, and sometimes it's nice to sort of have a group that looks at that. But again, these are things I thought of, absolutely not what you need to do. We're open to any feedback.
No problem. I was going to say, doesn't want to stay. You touched on this a little bit, because I was going to ask, you made comments that some feedback that you kind of heard was that some people were maybe not feeling fulfilled in the work they're doing. If we're kind of being like a liaison for these different groups, how are we helping them in that, you know, feedback, fulfill them getting more? Like what would be our role in that?
I mean, I think ideally, what would help is some of the committee members I spoke with were like, I only want to do this. I'm totally fine just picking out concerts and meeting twice a year and like, job done. Others, especially on Senior Services, were like, I'm retired. I have a lot more time. I'd love to be more involved. I'd love to be on the Citizen Advisory Committee, and my neighborhood was already filled. And so, you know, I think it should be a collaborative, if the council wants to go this direction, right? I think it should be a collaborative process with like how we actually figure out the details on what this really looks like. But it would be nice if there were opportunities for some of these folks to attend these meetings and, when appropriate, give input on other items you talk about. Or maybe they say, You know, I may be on human services, but I actually would, oh, you're working on XYZ project, you know, I'd love to raise my hand and be considered for it or something. So I don't, you know, I don't really know how it's all gonna work out. I just know we've got some people that would like to be giving more and doing more, and we're maybe not really set up right now to give them that vehicle at the same time. And this is definitely like a city manager problem, not a citizen problem. But I don't have staff to actually post minutes, be here, record, come up with agendas for 9 committees, candidly, especially with the creation of the Planning Commission and Airport Committee. Those are huge. So I'm needing to think creatively about like, how can I get these functions happening, but it not requiring, you know, resources I don't have. I think I would say it's not that they don't understand their role in the larger picture. I wouldn't describe it that way. What I'd say is, and this is a great problem to have, but a couple of these committees were like, I would like to meet every other week, and I would love to have a robust agenda every 2 weeks, and we are really doing a lot. And in reality, like, I don't have the funding for the Arts Committee, for example, to really be doing projects every 2 weeks, or the sort of staff work that takes.
Does not need that kind of work.
Well, they would disagree, right? So to that committee member, they say, I want to be doing more. I want to get more involved. I think we should be doing more. And so I'm trying to sort of weave that fine line of like, okay, I've got a person who's passionate about their community, who wants to be involved, and who has ideas. I never want to tell that person, sorry, you only get to meet twice a year. At the same time, we're not really set up, and I'm just using arts as an example, for like the Arts Committee to have like, you know, a $4 million budget and a staff person and stuff like that is not how we're set up. And so I'm trying to sort of find something that like gives people a vehicle to get involved who want to. And so that's why we're sort of thinking this liaison thing. So I feel like I'm not totally answering your question directly, but I don't want to characterize these committee members as them not understanding the big picture. That's not what I see.
Well, yeah, and
So the first question that I always ask is, you know, the budget, right? So the numbers really tell the story of what needs to happen here. We can't afford to have 9 committees, 7 committees with staff. It makes total sense to make the subcommittees be very informal and operate without the support of staff unless they need something. Whoops. And so, you know, just from an economic standpoint, I think, you know, we're really at a place and a juncture in our history where we have to really look at the numbers. You know, when you do the math on what we're currently doing and actually sit down and do the numbers, it's too much for what the output is, right? The deliverables, the things that are actually occurring, there really isn't enough coming out of that pipeline in order to justify the expense of the staff, right? And now we don't have even the staff because there's 3 people gone. So that's where my mind is going. Like, let's do something that we can actually afford to do, and this is viable, very viable. I actually have another comment that relates to my experiences on different boards, and where you have either a membership organization or specifically a membership organization, and you have an executive board, and then you have the subcommittees, right, that are part of that. But they're all intermingled. Like, I could be an executive board member and be a secretary, but I'm also a general member of the membership organization, right? So if all of the members that were in the subcommittees were also part of the CAC, then they would come to meetings, they would, these meetings, they would be at the formally staffed meetings to report out and to take back information going both ways. Then, those of us that were specifically on the CAC would be able to report out to the community what they're doing and support them, as well as to give feedback at the general meetings. But I do think we need to have regular meetings, no matter how many people show up, no matter how many people can't make it. We need to specify the time that we're meeting. It's the first Monday of every month, or the first Wednesday of every month, whatever it is, right? So at the end of the day, those are some experiences that I have. And then the last comment I have has to do with, again, my experience on the University of Washington Alumni Association, where I was serving a 2-year term as a trustee, and then I was invited on my second year to be an executive, and then that was a 2-year term. So I ended up being there 3 years. But they don't want me to go anywhere, right? So they have, they offered other ways to use my time and my intentionality and everything. And that's what could also happen. All of these people that are sitting on the sidelines here have the time, the resources to give to the community and want to do and to continue to do more. So the coming back and forth in between this model just really lends itself to that, in my opinion. But that means we have to change the rules about the 2-year term. We have to really consider whether that's even realistic, because I don't know when my term actually started, honestly. I think it was July of 2 years ago. And so I'll be rolling off, but I could have done so much more in the 2 years that my term is. So, and then I know Victoria's sitting over there. She wants to continue. At the University of Washington offered me a role as a legislative person in this program they call District Dogs, which means I can do this for the rest of my life as a district dog, not playing a role in the executive committee, not playing a role as a board member, just being an active alum. So that's what I see, is that this could really, really work. And members at large could roll in and out of functionality. I personally have a nursing background. Once I roll out of here, I'm applying for the Health and Human Services positions, right? But I also book events and adventures and artists and all of that too. So maybe 2 years from now, I'll go into the arts committee, right? So we have that ability to float in and out. I think this is a really great model with those considerations anyway.
And I think that structure you just mentioned is sort of like this larger committee with these sort of subcommittees was what we sort of had in mind. So that's what we think could be really effective, or at least something to try and see how that goes. Probably because they've sort of morphed into that anyways. So like no matter what, we need to clean up a lot of bylaws. Like if you were to read the bylaws for what the Senior Services Subcommittee actually is charged with in our code and what they really do, those are like, it's very outdated. So that's a great suggestion that we can definitely look at. You know, if the council wants to move forward with this structure, then we'll do a big overhaul of all that.
tonight. I finally figured that out. I agree with Chuck. I think this is, and Bettina too, and probably everybody else. I like this setup. I like the fact that it's not broken down by neighborhood. You know, if I'm interested in the arts, which I'm not, it shouldn't matter that I live by Mount Rainier High School and not at the marina. Human services, I would die to be part of that, or at least, you know, working with that. Anyhow, I think it's a great setup, and I think it's going to help us move forward. Find the people that are interested, that have the talents, and let them help.
Tristan? Okay. Eddie? Anything you want to share?
Same, I agree with everyone. I think it's great. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You brought up the point about maybe moving away from neighborhood representation. And I would not want to do that, at least not right away.
Oh, I'm making reference to the subcommittees.
In reference to that, but in terms of our overall committee structure,
Victoria, that's kind of the last topic.
Oh.
Where do we go in the future? That's one of the things to throw out.
One of the reasons why I like this is that it's an opportunity to let things cook before they actually come before the council. And I'm probably gonna get in trouble here, but the 6-gill shark thing was like, bam, make a decision. And I think that, you know, there were some questions that, you know, needed to be asked. You know, it's very much a Redondo project, but we're talking about changing the name of a street in the Marina District. And it was like, okay, you know, it's kind of, and somebody comes with a proposal. It was very well done. Obviously, a lot of thought was put into it, but it really wasn't passed by, you know, everybody putting eyes on it and saying, okay, is this going to solve things? So I think from a council position, something coming through this structure means that it's not half-baked. It's gone through and it's had all eyes on it and everything. And so, you know, in the council's role of making policy, we say, okay, yeah, this has got legs, this has got potential, let's do it. So I see great value in this, you know, from the council standpoint.
Boy, that is really leading me to another point that I made when I did speak about this, and that is the weight that is put on any committee as a council member, right? So, especially with the 2 new committees that are coming, they're going to be experts on there. They're going to be giving their wisdom, their pearls, their vetting. They're all into something, and then there has to be some weight that's given to them, right? So in business, when I hire an attorney, I listen to them. One, because I'm paying them, but also because they're experts in that. When these folks in these ad hoc or subcommittees are weighing in, the council should give weight, heavier weight, especially when you think about land development and things like that, where you're going to have to require people like Chuck, you know, and that is something that should also go into the bylaws, you know, like there should be some consideration if you're going to have a committee that you listen to them, and maybe if they say we should be doing this, that it carries a little bit more weight than if it was just some Joe Schmo saying it. So, and I think that's a great point to it.
No, I think this is helpful. So I still need to finish talking to the Arts Commission members to get their input. And then I think what I'd like to do is sort of take all this feedback. I'll probably chat probably with the mayor and deputy mayor or whomever, sort of see like, all right, let's consolidate this info. I'll go back to the council as a whole with sort of because a lot of them have not seen this, you know, of sort of hey, here's what I heard. Here's another approach to it. Do you want me to flesh this out? And if the council does, then we will start really getting into details, and we'll be back to definitely talk about that. Okay.
And I should turn on my mic. Okay, next. As anybody that's been paying attention lately, we are going to be developing a strategic plan. Part of what goes into strategic planning is priorities. And Catherine is going to talk to us a little bit about that process, and then we'll put it out to the discussion of what does the CAC see as the priorities that the council should be looking at in the strategic plan.
Right. Let me start by saying you are going to be seeing much more of me about as the strategic plan goes. So don't think, gosh, she came once and this is our only input. This is like the beginning of what will be a lengthy conversation. So, you know, don't feel like what you say today, you know, holds you to it forever. But I sent the PowerPoint out last night. I'm sorry it came out a little bit late, but I wanted to get it to you if you had a chance to flip through it ahead of time, just so you could sort of know what we're going to go through. This is a consolidated version of what I showed the council on March 6th. And so I'm just going to go through briefly sort of what is a strategic plan, what the process looks like, how kind of public engagement can work, what our next steps are going to be. And then the deputy mayor had suggested that we maybe have a very initial preliminary conversation about priorities and visioning. So we're going to have sort of very preliminary, but again, like much more to come. So again, this was presented to the city council on March 6th. The council was supportive unanimously in moving forward. And so we have what's called a request for qualifications, which is, you know, government speak for a document for people to submit proposals, posted now on our website for interested teams to submit on strategic planning and facilitation. There's a lot of firms that do this for cities. I've spoken to probably 5 or 6 of them in the last few weeks. So I anticipate we'll get some good proposals. In November, the council did this work in a study session. They did a mission, vision, and values for the community. And so a strategic plan really takes this and puts it into sort of like, what does that really mean for us to show marked progress in achieving that? So a strategic plan is really a long-term vision of a city's priorities and goals, and it should really focus on what the most important issues are, and then there's some kind of action items or to-do items that help you make progress towards achieving that. It should have measurable goals, so there's some way for you to tell if you've made progress. But typically, you know, everything government does cannot be counted in like widgets. So some of it is sort of subjective, and that's kind of part of the process. But where you can, you try to really set some goals or milestones. Probably like many of you who, you know, have had professional jobs in the past, like, you know, you're asked to do that. It's a normal thing. Why I think this is really helpful is that it will help guide decision making, because once you go through this process, the community and the council, and then therefore the staff, really know where we are to put limited resources. So since we are a community that is in such a budget constrained situation, and I suggest one of our goals will be to grow revenue, but it's really important that we make sure resources are put in what you, the community, the council has said is the most important thing. It is very easy with the amount of items that show up on agendas and just the volume of issues coming at the council to kind of, you know, it's nobody's fault, but you can kind of lose sight of like, wait, what am I supposed to really be focused on? So this is something that helps with that. So I heard a lot about this during my interview process personally from people, just sort of this desire of like, where is the city going? What is really the plan with fill in the blank, downtown, parks, whatever. And so this is something that sort of can help address that. And then again, this is a great way for the community to engage. I also heard that a lot while I was here. There's a strong desire from the community to be more involved, more engaged. You know, Victoria just hit on that. So you don't need to look at the words on these, but I'm just giving these as a few examples. So this is Shoreline's, what they call framework goals. Again, what's on there, it doesn't really matter. But the point is like, They've got 18, which is a lot, but you know, they've got 18 items that they're like, this is what we're working on. This is another community. Is Bothell. They broke theirs down into like kind of 5 or 6 big buckets. So see, like one of their, you know, big goals is connecting neighborhoods for one city. And then they put a couple specific items on maybe what they want to get done for the next few years. This is the community I came from, so I couldn't help that I put it down because I like wrote that document. But the council had 5 or 6 goals. Then there were some real specific objectives that were very, you know, we want to ensure government operations are high quality and resident focused. And then staff would really fill in the to-do list, and that would be updated every year. Renton is much more high level. They did a very high level kind of business plan, but again, same thing. A couple of areas that they're focusing on. You can see the 5 areas with sort of that bold text, and then some specific action items. Those action items get updated regularly. This is Issaquah. I showed it to the council and then also sort of gave the caveat of like, we're probably not there yet. This is a very robust version. They have a lot of performance measures and tracking where you can see like they, on their website live, have the progress on their goals. I don't think we're gonna quite be able to launch at this level. You know, I think I told the council this is sort of like launching at the Cadillac, but I think it's important to show sort of what's possible if a few years down the road, we really are kind of mastering what it means to be doing this process. So what does this look like? So at the March meeting, I got a good sense of what the council's kind of, what was important to them in the process of strategic planning and kind of what level of depth they wanted. And so really the next step is for us to assemble the right team to help us. I did get a question from somebody of like, well, why don't you guys just do it internally? This is really best to have done by an external team that's using input from staff, input from the community, input from the council. They have the benefit of having seen lots of these plans all over, you know, the state, the nation in some cases, but also they're totally objective. You know, I like to think I can be 100% objective, but I can't help that I already have things that I'm like, I'm definitely putting that down on the plan. You know, and so like we all have that. So it's important to kind of get an outside group that leads that process. I think it also will help the public have trust in the outcome if they feel like it was totally objective, you know, nothing was predetermined. So the next thing, once we get that right team, is we'll figure out sort of what the timeline and cost will be. There's typically a council strategic planning retreat where the council will really focus on this for a day or two. That's very common. There's usually staff strategic action item sessions where like you take what the council says are the big priorities, and then staff will kind of put in like, hey, here are 5 things we can do to like sort of make progress on that. And then really the full plan comes back to the council. Now, I've not talked about public engagement. I'm gonna do that on the next slide, but that is kind of woven throughout this. So I'll get to that in a second. So what this document really ends up doing, because I also had some people say to me, gosh, we have so many plans, the last thing we need is another plan, and I get it, it sounds so bureaucratic. But right now what we have is a marina capital improvement plan, we have a downtown plan that was never like adopted, we have a comprehensive plan we're going through right now. But if you as a citizen said, what are the handful of big things my council's working on so that this community is better 10 years from now? I don't really have anything to show you. And from a staff perspective, it is hard for us to always know where we should put in our efforts and like what does success look like if we don't have something, our North Star to really point to. Well, we also need money, but also, yeah, where do we put the money? Yeah, where do we put the money? True. So again, it's a living document. It's kind of, again, that North Star. So public engagement, this can come in all sorts of spectrums. You can do lots of public engagement. You can do very little. This council made very clear that they want to do robust public engagement. So I don't have tonight exactly what that's going to look like. We're going to get the right team on board and together we'll develop what that looks like. But you know, some things that may happen are, let's say the council says, we really want this plan to be driven by the public, which, I mean, I think it really needs to be a council-led thing. But let's say they say, I want the community to do it and bring us a draft. Then maybe it lives with the Citizen Advisory Committee. Or maybe the council says, I want the community to give a lot of input on those priorities. So maybe we do a community survey and a town hall or something. So there's lots of options for what community engagement can look like. I don't know what that is gonna look like today, just know there's gonna be a lot of it, more to come, and it was really important to the council. Timeline and cost, really this can be it depends on how deep you wanna go. After the council's discussion of what I heard the other night, I think we're gonna be closer to the $50,000 to $75,000 range. Although dollars are tight, man, this is an important place to put our money. Once you do one good plan that is your foundation, updating it is so much easier, and so you're not spending that all the time. I do have a line item in the budget that can cover this, but more to come on that, right? Like, I don't know what the cost is yet. We don't even know who we're working with yet. More to come, but it is not I wouldn't call it cheap, but I also wouldn't call it dollars wasted by any stretch. It typically takes 6 months to a year. And then, you can see on there what drives cost and time of how long it takes. It's how much public engagement, how deep they want to go, things like that. So we're sort of beginning the topic now. So Deputy Mayor Steinmetz had said, hey, let's talk to the Citizen Advisory Committee about sort of what their thoughts are on priorities. And that is a really hard question to ask people. What do you think are the priorities in this community? I mean, that's a huge question. So I'm going to walk you through a couple things. Ideally, we have like 5, maybe 7 max. I mean, you guys know this from real life, right? When you have 12 priorities, then nothing's a priority. So I know tonight we're gonna get lots of answers, and that's helpful for me, but just know, like, really for this to be successful, it's gonna need to be like, a manageable number that off the top of our head, we can all list what those priorities are. I'm gonna come back to this in a minute. I put these on the slide just as sort of like, what does she mean when she says priority for a city? So the things that are most important, it's sort of a given, but it can be easy to forget. Really what needs to be our priorities are things the city can control. So, doing XYZ in the school district shouldn't really be our priority. I don't really have anything to do with that. So, you want to keep it focused to what we can really influence. These are some ideas. Again, I'll come back, but it's just to sort of get your wheels turning. And then I thought for discussion, we could sort of go through some of these questions and just sort of hear your initial thoughts. Again, more to come. This isn't your binding comments forever, but we can start there if you all want, or if you have questions about what I've presented, I'm happy to go back on that as well.
And so just for process, as we start putting down some priorities, Victoria has agreed to act as our scribe. Thank you very much, Victoria. And her handwriting is so much better than mine. This will be a much better idea.
And I'll type them up too. You
even
get full coverage.
Full service.
even better. So, but for discussion, maybe this is where we start the conversation before we start listing what those priorities might be. So if that is appealing, who would like to go first?
So let's start with, what kind of community do we aspire to be in 5 or 10 years?
Yep.
What comes to mind?
Well, we are a waterland city, that's what we use. Now, I'm very biased towards the marine side. I've been doing this all my life, maritime work. So I would like to see some way to prioritize to really expand, not just the marina, but the whole idea that we have this waterland city in different groups that we can.
I had some things that were similar to that, in like the term beach town, coastal destination, boat shows, so things that have to do with our unique maritime culture that we have here.
Five or 10 years out, what do you want to see? Paul?
I'm not going to write that, Paul.
I'll second that.
Talking about the budgetary concerns, I mean, the only way we're ever to solve that is by continuing to provide economic opportunities for businesses and the public in the downtown core.
So he can.
I love the idea of using our best resource, which is the water, because we have to have some sort of economic center to draw people to that advantage of the water.
Bettina?
I think that one of our most pressing challenges and opportunities really is our communication. If we do not solve our communication problem, we can't do much of anything 5 or 10 years from now. We won't see it. It won't be measurable, right? Because we have this struggle that continues to exist, that isn't budgeted for, that must be budgeted for as an investment of the city to resolve our communication problem, not just the website, but communication as a whole. Because when I participate on Facebook social, or I participate in the community or whatever, and you just listen to the misinformation that's out there, it is insane. And you can spend your whole day going back and forth to correct people. And there's, like right now, you just mentioned there's an RFQ out, right? I didn't hear about it, right? I have people that I want to send that information to. So I was out here searching the website. It took me 10 minutes. And now I sent it and emailed it to somebody while I was in this meeting. That's how I'm communicating. I'm into communication, right? But I shouldn't have to spend 10 minutes to find an RFQ or anything on the website. So I personally believe that this investment of a communications person, any decision around communication is really, really inherently important. I have some other comments that have to do with in a sense, the process that we're in, recognizing you're doing an amazing job, the council's doing an amazing job on certain levels for sure. But there's a lot of intellectual capital that keeps getting massaged over and over. And there isn't a document, an existing document that's captured that. I sent you loads of it with, YouTube channel videos that have been documented. This same conversation we've had repeatedly, right? The council has had it with a retreat. You've had it when we had another meeting, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. So we shouldn't have to keep rehashing the same questions if we're tracking the capital or the intellectual capital of the organization, right? That's the collective knowledge, the resources, the skills, the employees, the organizational processes, and some of these intangibles, right, that we seem to have to redo over and over and over and over again. When we do things over and over and over again, we're wasting valuable time, right? And then there's some existing structural capital, like relationships with customers, our brand reputation that already exists, and the market position and the procedures that we already have in place. So I believe we would save ourselves an inordinate amount of time if we spent money first collecting all of that capital into one living document that gets you up to speed from 5 years ago, just 6 months ago before you arrived, so that it's all in one place. Because at the end of the day, like I've been here almost 3 years in, I think it's August, and I have only so much knowledge because I come to only about 85 to 90% of the meetings, and there's stuff that goes in my ear and out the other, right? So if there's nobody capturing that information, it's just rehashing over and over the same information, the branding questions and all that stuff. It's like, we've already talked about it. And for members of the community who've been here, living a very long time, they have said it. How many years have you said communication, right, Victoria?
That's why I didn't want to speak Saturday. People hear
I know.
me now.
But yet there are probably citizens who go, we don't need no communication. We don't need a communications officer. It's like, yes, we do. We absolutely do. And we have to find the budget for that before we go forward with spending more money on rehashing the same thing and not getting anywhere with it.
Mary Ellen?
Well,
Sorry.
I want to respond to that.
Yeah.
And you're right, Bettina, because you've sent me before some of that communication, and I think when it comes to sort of the discussion on communication specifically, you're totally spot on. That does seem to be sort of this like revolving thing. I would say this is not something that's just about communications. I mean, today, for what it's worth, the city staff went through a 2-day, like, kind of senior leadership thing, and what the staff envisioned, for what that's worth, right? I mean, they actually implement, they're not, I mean, in a way, it doesn't matter what we think, but their goal was for this to be a prosperous, vibrant, and safe community, and that decisions need to all track to what achieves that. So I guess I just share that to say this, I agree with everything you're saying on communications. This should be more of a vision document, which I don't think we really have, because the comprehensive plan is more about like very specific land use measures. But I think your point's fair, right? If people feel like they're always participating in these and not seeing things happen, 100% fair comment. But this is not a communications plan, I just want.
Yeah, and I make my remarks because, you know, I've helped businesses and even myself budget on a shoestring and get really big stuff done by focusing first on what you can actually afford. And we can afford to put this document together before we hire someone who's going to go through the same process that we're going through here tonight, right? So it's like, it's affordable when you break it down into steps. These steps, this step first, that step second. If we don't break it down into steps, it just looks like it's too much money for one.
Can you sum that up in about, I know you've been talking, do you have a way of summing, you've got one question up there. Can you sum it up in like 3 sentences?
Well, I think, like I said, that's the pressing challenge that we have, and that it's unmet right now, is that we have not prioritized intellectual capital, existing structural capital, and addressing communication. So that's it.
Mary Ellen?
Catherine kind of hit on what I think I would like to see in 5 to 10 years, is that it's a safe community and a prosperous one. I would like to see us, I'm thinking of Auburn, like Auburn does something called Pet Palooza, and it's a fun thing. That's like you can walk your dog, and they put up stuff where people with pets go. Anyway, they have been sending information about that. I'm going to go again this year because I'm getting that information. So if we can somehow figure out, and like I say, you touched on it, kind of how to be, lure people here. And we've got great resources. We've got the marina, we've got what I call the boardwalk in Redondo. If we could sell that somehow, even just, you know, put it in the Seattle Times in the Friday edition, you know, where they have things that are happening, get us well known, I guess.
Yep.
Just touch on what you just said, yes, you've got the boardwalk, the marina, the park up here north that goes off the beach. It's a beautiful little area. Don't forget, we have a wonderful state asset, Saltwater State Park, smack in the middle of Des Moines. Yeah, utilize that, bring it together with it.
I mean, what I'm hearing from a lot of this is the connections that, you know, the, you know, Pet Palooza that you're talking about is connected to the larger community of public safety, because that's where you started talking about the public safety and the prosperity. You're bringing people in, that's a prosperity thing. It's safe. It's a community that people feel safe. That's the connection between the event of Pet Palooza and those bigger goals. Is that what you had in mind?
I think connected is a very good word. I had that down too, vibrant, connected, lively, but connected hits your communications. Sorry.
No, I can hear you, but
Yeah.
I'm sitting next to you.
Yeah, that's just leave it at that.
All right. Magda?
Not to sound like a broken record, but I have those words: connected, vibrant, sustainable. You know, so connected, and I wrote internally and externally. I've been in Des Moines 25 years. I came here when I was pregnant with my daughter. She's gonna be 24 this year. You know, 25 years. And the way I knew about what was happening 25 years ago is the same way I know what's happening now, and it's the magazine. You know, like, oh my God, 25 years, so much has changed, you know, the web and all of that. And if I'm not on Facebook, I miss things. So definitely connected internally, externally, utilizing free things like Instagram, Facebook, maybe a text if there's a link to something. So internally and externally. I also think we have a fantastic opportunity coming up on, like you said, where do we see ourselves in the next 5 to 10 years? With the library. It's going to
Yeah.
open us up. People that don't know where Des Moines is will know where Des Moines is. You know, so what's the opportunity there, you know, because where the library will stop to the farmer's market, for example, it's far, but what if there was a shuttle or something, you know, that connected people, and maybe they use it to commute for work from other communities, but then on the weekend they know what's going on because there's plenty of advertisement on the library or things like that, you know, so it's going to put us on the map, not that we're not, but, you know, it's going to put us more on the map and people will find out what Des Moines is, so we don't have to continue being the best kept secret, but also the small town feeling. That's how I describe Des Moines when people ask me. I'm like, oh, it's a small town feeling, it's a big city, but it's not. It's kind of feels homey, you know, and I still can run into my neighbors if I go to the market, you know, and make it a whole day. So definitely connected, internally and externally, vibrant, sustainable. I really like what you said that the senior leadership team of the city said, because it sounds like we're in alignment because we want it to be prosperous, sustainable, and I mean financially sustainable. There's enough money coming in, and there's enough activities, and the money keeps circling, you know, so we don't have to worry about whether we have enough money for the communities because there will be money there, you know. And then what I wrote here is people support what they co-create. I've used that throughout my career. When we get people involved, you know, so I'm going to bring the farmers market again. It's kind of like a place where people go. We have a table during the whole summer there where people can just come and talk to it. We staff it, and we just have people and kids write up, what would you like City of Des Moines to be? And we hear their voices, from little kids to elder, you know, everyone, you know. What did you want to see? And let that be our guiding light, you know, because that will then represent the communities that we live. I've seen the city change so much in 25 years. You know, I used to be one of the only Hispanic families. I'm not anymore. And that's nice, you know, but are we serving the community at large? Are we thinking about everyone? And we won't know if we don't ask, right?
What do you mean by vibrant? We need to explore that word a little bit more in my mind.
Bustling, you know, like there's people coming and going, businesses don't have to do a lot of advertising because they're busy. They're busy, there's money coming in, there's activities going on. The kids don't have to go to other cities to do activities because we have them here. You know, the parks are being utilized. My kids grew up going to the field house, ballet classes, karate, and you know, the Halloween parade, and going to the senior center, you know, from when Des Moines was here, Des Moines Elementary. You know, so that type of connected, busy, people know each other because you see them on the street. So, you know, like that's what I mean. Busy, vibrant, bustling.
Full of
Okay.
life.
Yeah, just
Do more with Highline College as a resource. I hate to keep hard on state agencies, but nonetheless, it is a wonderful resource for these type of things we can utilize because we have that college in Des Moines.
Terry?
I might have missed hearing it, but one word that comes to mind that I haven't heard is collaboration. There is a lot of businesses in like Burien, for example, that collaborate with each other, and then they help do things for each other's businesses to bring the community together. I've lived here 21 years. Maybe I'm just disconnected, but I don't see that a lot necessarily in our community. And I would say that when I do go out and about, this is not the community I do those things in, because I don't feel like there is this cohesive, connected. There is, like, if I go down to like Quarter Deck, you can tell who the people are that are connected, but that's a very small group of people versus a community. If I go to other communities that do have more of that cohesive feeling, where you can just walk around and these businesses are connected in different ways, it's just a very different feeling, and it's not the same feeling I necessarily get here in Des Moines. And I will piggyback on the Highline College thing. They do a program that there's volunteer teachers that will have small kids come, and they teach them different skills on the weekends. And so like they had a 3D printer, and they were having the kids, I don't have small children anymore, but I've never seen that advertised. I've never heard anybody talk about it. I only know about it because I walk my dogs there. And so it's kind of like, I think everything everybody's saying, it comes together. We need to communicate, we need to get this information out there, we need to have more collaboration with each other to be able to have that. I mean, I have not seen a lot of change. Restaurants change, but it's just like, it's because somebody failed and then another goes in. There's the same empty lots, there's the same, I mean, in 21 years, there really has not been a lot of growth, in my personal opinion, when I go through downtown. And I think that could be a huge area to just like the sustainability to get Des Moines out there.
And the downtown, I think, is important, that you noted, just.
Yeah. Because that's like the main drag, right?
Yeah.
People go, that's where you drive through downtown. And I will say 24th, no one's brought it up, but oh my lord, I would love to see that road fixed. I want to see that in my future.
Let's
You are
see
not
when I
alone.
talk after, Terry.
Yes.
I have an update.
Along the middle school.
By Pacific Middle School.
Pacific. Oh my god, yes. 20
That has been torn up now for years. And
Okay, fine, I am addressing it now. It should be done by October. The city has, good question, 2025. There's been a lot of issues in coordination with PSE. And so that has caused significant delays, and we're actually getting into like legal action with them about it. So it's not like we're just like not showing up.
No, I did hear that, but it's kind of unfortunate they couldn't have at least done a little partially better job of temporarily paving it, because someone went in and started doing it themselves, I noticed.
Oh.
Someone dumped a bunch of concrete in some of the potholes. I'm assuming someone in the community, because it did not look professional.
Yeah.
Just because it was so, I mean, it's bad. So thank you, that was great to hear, thank you.
Chuck,
Catherine, I'm curious, what's the deliverable on the RFP that's out?
The RFQ. So they're submitting like 10 to 12 pages. It's not a proposal, it's just qualifications, because we really need to talk to figure out what the proposal should be. So it's really qualifications. I think it asked for them to submit like 4 or 5 municipal clients they'd worked with, what their process is. They have to submit a couple of like example work products of the strategic plan. I think there's some references that are approach to community engagement, things like that.
So is the ultimate goal in this process for them to create the strategic plan for the city?
That's a great question, because I think there's a couple people seem to think like, oh, these people are going to come in and tell us. And no, they are going to help guide all of us. Because the strategic plan should really, I mean, candidly come from the community and the city council. And so these are people that are more skilled at sort of facilitation of how we can sort of get that feedback and synthesize it. These are not outsiders plopping down and saying, this is what your community should do.
I don't see how they could do that for the money we're talking about, because that type of analysis and planning and manpower and time takes a
Yeah.
lot of money.
So again, they're not coming in and doing the analysis to say, this is what your city should be. They are, it's actually strategic planning and facilitation services. So they're actually facilitating the process this community and the council goes through to determine what those priorities are. That is very common. That is the process that 90% of cities go through for a strategic plan. The long-range financial forecasts that I've been talking to committees about and the council will consider on April 10th, that is different. That is like financial experts coming in and looking just at our finances. So that's a very different project. This is really a community-created plan on what the community should be.
So my comment is that everything that everyone said was said about a year and a half ago when we did one of these, where they put the stickies on the wall and they all fell off because they don't stick on the wall. But these are all feel-good words. I agree with all of them. We could fill this entire room with words that we all feel that we want to see happen. The real challenge is, how do you do it? How do you make it happen? That's the tough part.
Absolutely. And so I would encourage you, Chuck, to actually look at and you maybe already did, but in the March 6th council packet, I actually linked to about a dozen strategic plans, like a full link to their document. I would encourage you to maybe take a look at some of those. Those are documents that are really kind of council created with community input. They start with feel-good words, but if you look at them, there's some real tangible items of like, do this, do this, do this. Unless that's not hitting what you're getting at.
No, it is. I hope and pray that we'll get to that point where we have a detailed list of a pathway to get to the goals that we all want.
That is the plan.
So that's the tactical side of the plan. Correct.
Yes. Gene?
Can I make a suggestion that everybody's brought up good points and everything, but what we haven't established is what a vision is. What is it that we really want the city to look like in 5 to 10 years?
Well, now the council, excuse me for interrupting, but the council does have vision, mission, values, that we were.
I understand that. First of all, does it jive with the citizens, what they want? But is it, this is, trying to set up a strategic plan. What is it we want to go for? But each of the things that have been mentioned, I think, are, what purpose are we serving when we talk about all these things? When we talk about public safety, when we talk about better communication and all this, what is the vision that we're actually serving? And if I may, tell me if this is not appropriate, what I, envision is that we be the best place in the region to raise a family and support and give our kids the opportunity to succeed. Because then all of this other stuff feeds into that. Okay, how do you accomplish that vision? So I think what I'm hearing here is, a lot of good, proposals, but to what end? So I guess what I'm saying is, do we need to rise up a little bit higher to look at it from a broader area? I mean, it's been a conversation in this community for a long time about, and it's been crudely put as we're choosing kids, or we're choosing public safety over our kids. So what's our priority? If we choose our kids, we have to make sure they're safe. So I guess that's what I'm saying is that, can we, is there a value in going up another 10,000 feet and looking at what we're actually trying to accomplish?
So if I can, the community that you're aspiring to is a place to raise families. It's a family-oriented community. And,
But are we getting away from that?
I'm sorry?
Are we getting away from that?
And, that can have issues of economic diversity, it can have issues of ethnic diversity, it can have a lot of different aspects of that, that make that sort of go into molding what kind of families, what kind of community makes that the place to raise a family in. I don't know that that's the end point. Just the best place to raise a family for what?
And to give our kids the, opportunity to succeed. I mean, it's kind of back, I'm old enough that I'm back and I'm heavily influenced by parents who went through the Depression and everything else. I'm the guy that had the grandmother that went for 7 years without getting a new dress, because every dime went to, during the Depression, was to help her kids succeed, her 4 kids succeed. And, you know, to me, whenever I look at everything, you know, decisions, it's how does this go to help our working families and our kids?
Which bullet would that be, would you say?
What kind of community do we aspire to be in
Number 1,
5, 10
so
years?
we're still on number 1?
Yeah.
Okay. A couple people did bullet number 2. So I'm just saying,
Yeah, go ahead.
Turn your mic on.
I'm just gonna make a recommendation. Thank you. That we go bullet by bullet until we feel like we've got enough things there, and then go to the next and the next, and stay focused that way. And then then we'll have specific answers for each bullet. And then we can incorporate that in. I do want to make an offering in regard to vision, mission, values, is that some of the things that we decided as a body might not be satisfactory to a bunch of community members, and these included. But that is like one of the only ways you can get it done. You elect officials to make decisions, and then you review them. But we did the best we could as a group, being guided by a professional. So the goal of this conversation, now this is here again, just my opinion, the goal of this conversation wouldn't be to redo, rethink, or undo, or redo that, but it would be to add some of these things to that. So we already have a mission, we already have a vision, we already have some values. So I think as we move into a strategic plan, we're looking to fill in some blanks with, somebody came up with these questions, they're good questions. So just to help Victoria and us let's stay on one bullet, go to the next and the next. And if we're not to the next one, just hold it. Do you think that would be a good plan?
Well, I think there's a
Okay.
lot of crossover between the
It just-
questions,
but
so.
it-
But yeah,
but
it
let's-
helps to move it along a bit,
Yeah,
and I'm happy to
here at
do.
8 o'clock too.
Yeah. So what's the most any more pressing challenges or unmet needs? Anybody else?
Oh,
Communication, it was one of them.
Mm-hmm. Anything?
well, when I talked to my daughters, they said businesses, they're in their 20s, and then, the feeling of, more vibrant, businesses, not as many shuttered, maybe more successful. Yeah.
But would you,
Okay.
would you repeat that? I didn't quite understand what you were wanting.
This is for the second bullet,
Right?
and, a pressing challenge or unmet need is, the topic of businesses, just in general, and, an ability to, like, not only be a place where you can raise a family, but where you can have a successful business, because, I see a few are successful and very much so, and then others struggle and come in and out, and
Eddie?
Well, we have this automatic number of people that drive through our cities every day, and they don't stop, because there's no reason to stop. You know, we don't have a grocery store, we don't have a post office, we don't have a this, that, or the other thing downtown.
right.
But yet we have all this traffic going through all the time.
That's a good point.
So, again, it's the street in the middle, it's, you know, if it's going to continue being a thoroughfare, and of course, we don't know that yet, if that new, you know, we don't really know that, we won't know it until we see the,
Impact of 509.
the impact of 509.
We'll get all the people that don't wanna pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That's a good one you should have up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Great opportunity for us.
Maybe, right, yeah.
So a pressing challenge is taking advantage of the people that are passing through town. Yes.
Highway
I, yeah,
I mean, Auntie Irene's might be the only ones that win in this.
yes.
They have a drive-through.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There was
Yep.
a lot of complaint when the QFC shut down.
Oh, yeah.
down here, because that was the, except for the Safeway up the hill, but as far as people living in that immediate area, a couple of, you know, the apartments and the small homes or a few blocks, yeah, not having that grocery store and having a QFC down there was a real loss.
Yeah.
Okay, priorities that'll effectively ensure our local government's long-term and communities' long-term financial health and stability. Gene?
Well, okay, I wanted to back up on one of them, and that,
Oh,
I've heard it a couple times tonight, I hear it, in our planning sessions all the time. We want a vibrant marina district.
A vibrant what? Gene?
Marina District.
I'm sorry.
Turn on your mic, Gene. Yelling at Tracy, and I don't do it myself. Whap! Let's remember that we have a $2.5 billion investment going in with the light rail. And with the transit-oriented development, and with that whole corridor up there and stuff, this CAC represents the whole city. I mean, let's, you know, I think we're shorting ourselves when we put all of our eggs in the basket of the Marina District. There's tremendous opportunity up there, and it's like I say, you can argue that ostensibly, yes, we did pay for it and stuff, but there's $2.5 billion worth of investment going on up there. I think we need to take advantage of that. And so, and to me, that manifests itself in things like, you're all familiar with last mile. It's how do people get to the light rail so they can utilize it and everything, is what is going to be one of the critical issues that we need to be talking about. So I'm hesitant to, or I mean,
I think that's.
I get concerned when we're talking about, you know, developing business in one particular area. I think we got to.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I do think that it fits right into the, you know, local government and communities' long-term financial health and
Exactly.
sustainability is taking advantage of the whole.
Exactly.
All of the opportunities, not exclusively focusing on one or the other.
I'm not suggesting, I'm suggesting that we.
But that's
do
exactly my point,
focus
is I
on all.
think you're not.
Right.
Okay. Anything?
Okay, I'll go ahead.
Oh, Kirsten.
Des Moines has to become a destination. I am focusing on a specific area because I'm a marina. But, you know, they're investing a ton of money in the redevelopment of the marina area. And quite frankly, there is no reason for a voter to stop other than to get gas and ice and leave. That has been forgotten from that plan. But the same thing that you're saying, Jane, about 509 light rail is, Des Moines needs to become a destination for everybody, whether they come by car, by boat, or however they get there.
How?
That isn't part of the question.
That's what I'm
We'll get there, but that's part of the,
There's no reason to come here.
The Fest Ferry, when we had the Fest Ferry, most
Yeah.
of us were going from here to there, but what about if there's something here from them to come to us?
Well, why don't we put that as a priority then? The ferry, something to do with the ferry system.
Did you ask
Mhm.
how? But why? Why? Why
Well,
would
we
they
have to
do
give them
that?
a reason. Then we
Mhm.
can how, but why?
Yeah.
Why?
There's not, I mean, it's not like you know, top of my list is, oh, I'm gonna go to Des Moines and go shopping, that's not it. Or I'm gonna go to Des Moines for an event, that's not it either, or, you know, it just, it's an afterthought.
You
know,
mentioned
it's
ferry
your
Okay.
system, but what connect that to this question, or?
It's a priority.
What do you want the ferry system to do?
It's a priority that will effectively ensure our local government and communities' long-term
Okay.
financial health and
So,
sustainability.
Getting the ferry system.
Yeah, either a fast ferry or a foot ferry or whatever that might be.
Colleen?
And I had mine up for communications is a priority for this bullet. Communications and even as much as a PR campaign, branding.
Is that
awareness.
financial health and stability? stability?
Yes, because more people would know about our city and come here, spend money.
Like what Mary Ellen said about bringing people down to Auburn, because you know about the Petapawula.
Right.
Okay.
And then you buy things.
Magda?
Oh, from the list of priorities, I will answer the question with economically vibrant downtown, destination, the marina, and strong community connections. Those three, I think, from this list will provide us with,
Can you say them again?
economically vibrant downtown, destination, the marina, and strong community connections. What Terry, you were saying earlier, that we're stronger together when we connect, and also like a passport that if you go to this restaurant and then this restaurant and this, you get something. You know, like,
Yeah.
making connections.
Okay. Can I
Okay.
just, I'm sorry.
That's fine, Terry.
I just want to add on to that, being that we've been in the community about the same time and raised children here. One thing that comes to mind when I first learned and moved here about Des Moines was the Waterland Festival. Like, I felt like that was what we were known for, and because that kind of, for various reasons, went away, then we didn't necessarily have this thing we were known for anymore. And so, I don't know if you kind of are thinking of that and feeling
I
that
agree,
way.
because if you have a family, you didn't wanna go to Seattle and the traffic and all of that, you could come to the.
And that fell in line with like our community, our children, our waterland future, like all of these things we're talking about is we had this thing that represented us. And I don't really know why it stopped, but
I think COVID never really
It's been a while.
it's been a long time,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well,
And
no,
the Waterland Parade is
If you really look at
trying
it.
to be
what's
part of that,
happened-
but
We have,
Okay.
what's happened is we have a lot of people who remember what the Waterland Festival was, but they remember it through the eyes of being a child. And they don't realize that it was the parents that were putting that on. And so we have like entire generations now that have gone, they want to attend Waterland as they did as a child. When we're now adults, we're the ones that are supposed to be putting it on.
Right.
And I think we've lost that sense of purpose of nurturing the next generation. That's my
Okay,
thought.
so groups and populations, which kind of leads into this, that in our community, whose needs aren't currently being addressed. Bettina? We're kind of running short on time, I'm trying
Yeah.
to push.
So, because it's not on there and it's a huge investment that we're making, the steps. That is really part of the economic development of this town, right? So we've got to put it on the list because we already made commitments towards it. There's money there for it. And it keeps falling by the wayside. It's gotta be a priority. That's the last question? It's the
Priorities.
same, yeah.
Priorities to sustain our
Yeah.
Third bullet,
Mm-hmm.
the steps.
I'm looking back on a conversation that was with Matt Mahoney and myself, when he was working with me down at the Mass Center, we did some things. We often thought with all the changes that were being planned for the marina, the park and all that, and that question came up, wouldn't it be good if we could expand on an aquarium, public aquarium, marine education program right in the marina or part of the park up there? And that conversation came up and we thought, well, we don't want to take away from what Mass Center is doing, that's not really a public aquarium per se, but we could expand on it, make that a destination. We had that conversation about 4 years ago to think, how could we build it and where would we put it? And we all agreed, right up here. We could build a large public aquarium, not super large, but something different to show our local marine life. People can ask questions back to the kids to do what we've been trying to do for years, which is marine education.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that might be something way down the line, but that would tie into our waterland image and all that. We know some rich people.
They just put all their money into the Seattle
I
Aquarium.
really wasn't planning on speaking.
Yeah. Uh-oh. we're in
I'm
trouble.
his wife.
Yeah.
I am a commuter from back east. Revolve around taking mass transit. When I worked in Seattle, I took the bus, I took the light rail, I took whatever was available. Two glaring things that I see as a detriment to the Marina District and to Redondo is there is no way to get to them unless you have a car or a ride. Now, I realize that Metro in its infinite wisdom would not spend the money on a route that probably doesn't get a whole lot of traffic. In fact, they canceled my one ride that I used to go to Seattle in. So, I mean, that's just something to think about and to kind of petition Metro for like maybe a summertime shuttle like they have in Seattle where you can go from like 3 or 4 different hotels down to the waterfront. Those are supported by the community. I don't know the ins and outs, but it's something to think about for those folks who don't always have cars.
That's that last mile that Jean.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we've been asking for a lot more east-west routes,
Yes,
or
exactly.
at least some east-west routes, because right now, the routes go north-south. They don't go from,
Good point.
Ken
Yeah.
actually has the same complaint, there's nothing, really very little goes that direction.
right,
My comment on that is you can't get there from here.
yes.
I think let's try and wrap up in maybe the next 7 minutes, because I know
Sure.
then Deputy Mayor Steinmetz had another item on the agenda, so.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else that
Whose needs aren't
People-
currently being addressed? We
needs
never
aren't
heard.
currently being addressed?
I said underserved, young adults, middle-aged adults like myself. Then my daughter said, it's not trendy and fun.
That's,
Affordable place that we
That's
could get
very
an
true.
apartment.
uh-huh,
From their 20-something perspective.
Out of the mouths of babes.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I would add minorities. Minorities are not being served
right.
at all.
Mhm.
Representation is very limited here.
And I have children and youth too, the adolescents, you know, there's not enough opportunities for them.
Gene?
One of the things that we should also recognize too is that there's two different demographics age-wise in this community. The older population is predominantly white, and the younger population, you know, with schools and everything else is predominantly BIPOC. And so there has to be some way to represent, you know, both groups, but be conscious of the fact that there is that division.
But there is what? Oh, the division, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Say what?
Did you get BIPOC?
BIPOC youth.
Do you
Oh,
want me to
minorities.
list it like that?
Okay. All right.
I'd like to see more veteran involvement, that's one thing, being a retired and a veteran. This area is, we just don't have American Legion, we don't have VFW to the level. We have a couple of big ones over in Kent, I've got good friends, we've been involved with them, but I'd like to see something like that involved in bringing in the retired vets and so forth. The Wounded Warrior Program, things like that, that would bring in that kind of folks.
Yeah, the VFW.
Okay.
How
And
would
I
we-
think Measure and Track is probably further down the road.
Yeah.
I don't think that's, at this point, a valuable use of the time necessarily. And so-
When people wanna mention, or again, I mean, we'll get into that during the process.
Mm-hmm. But anything that just jumps out?
That was my favorite part of Renton's plan, by the way, the dashboard.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have thoughts when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
okay.
Okay,
And then you
Okay.
get budget track. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
From the beginning.
absolutely. So, okay. Then the last topic is, where do we go from here? So, you know, discussing the path forward, we heard some ideas of, do we need to keep the neighborhood representation model? Do we need to expand this to be just the people who are interested? I'm seeing a little, and I'm kind of throwing this out there, that if we really want to bring in a lot of the different parts of the community, then the neighborhood model serves that.
Agreed.
And to get rid of it, we would end up, I mean, frankly, this room is
Not
Yeah.
very diverse.
not very diverse, thank you. You know, and I know that when my wife, who is close to fluent in Spanish, she was the PTA president at Woodmont Elementary, long time ago now, just ask my boys. But, you know, she did the first hour in Spanish. PTA attendance doubled. When she left, because my boys moved up and on, PTA attendance dropped. You know, there has to be more resources available, even if it's just community resources reaching out. And so, you know, we can have the discussion, but I want to keep that in mind, that part of the structure was to try to reach out to all parts of Des Moines, not just the parts of Des Moines that are regularly involved.
I wonder if there's room to
Just-
do both.
Say it one more time,
If
Magda.
there's room to do both, neighborhood representation with keeping diversity in mind. You know, do we have data of the city, like who is here? Is there data
Yes.
that shows that, you know, I'm sure we have it. Can we look at it and see, is there a representation? Well, we already know that it's not.
No, not representation, but yeah, we have data.
You know, who are we looking for? I work for a nonprofit and our board has to be 51% a community led. And we have to, if we lose someone, we're specifically looking for a Asian women that, you know, so we're not looking for like anyone, specifically, very intentionally looking for someone. So I think there's opportunity for both, because I will hate to lose the neighborhood too. It's nice to see what issues affect who and how we can all get connected. Because I also suspect that the diversity is in pockets too. If we focus on that diversity only, then we will focus on just certain neighborhoods of Des Moines, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
we will lose the connection with other areas that perhaps has less diversity.
Bettina?
So if we want to have representation, we have to go out and find it, right? I'm really good about that, but I don't know, because there's a lot of focus and emphasis on the Marina District, which doesn't have a lot of representation. So right now we have this meeting here, but maybe we take it somewhere else. Like, you know, there's gotta be some outreach that happens, whether it's the council or other members of the CAC or other members of these other committees. But it's not gonna happen just by virtue, especially since we don't have communication nailed. It's not gonna happen just because we say so. It's gonna happen because we go out and go get people that are representative of communities.
Paul?
Is the city concerned at all with what's happening at the federal level as far as diversity and how we measure and answer that? I mean, I work for a company that's a federal contractor, and we're, you know, twisting ourselves in knots right now trying to figure out how are we going to stay true to our core values as a company, but also not represent, you know, not measure and track some of the, you know, development and hiring of a diverse employment group, right?
Yeah, so we've been getting some guidance from the Association of Washington Cities, but, you know, it's so unclear right now. I'd say every day we're worrying about federal funding, and we're being told to get things done and get reimbursement requests in. And as it relates to sort of the diversity programs and efforts, you know, I think Washington has a big bullseye on it, period. So, I mean, I think we're trying to stay true to our practices and beliefs, yet also not invite problems we don't need to invite.
Yeah.
So that's my,
Yeah, right.
you know, straddling the fence answer.
Yeah, no, I get that, and if that's
Makes
our
perfect sense.
vision here, I mean, again, neighborhood representation is probably the most effective way to ensure that.
Gene?
If anybody is looking for statistics for our younger generation and stuff, the superintendent of public instruction has on its dashboard school reports, and they break down the demographics of each particular school. And so you can really track in the community. And it does extend too, because, you know, the kid population is reflective of, the next, their parents and all of that. So, but that's a really good resource, is the school report cards on the Superintendent of Public Instruction's website. So,
So what I'm hearing is we want to keep the neighborhood representation.
Yeah.
Is that,
Yep.
okay?
And also the primary and the alternate, because as we've seen tonight, we can't always make it to every meeting. So having two people for each district when possible assures that that district is represented.
Is that? Lot of head nods. Okay. Neighborhoods and, yes.
I like the idea of holding maybe track meetings in different neighborhoods. That is a great idea, and invite the public. Just maybe as a gallery. The problem is, it's hard to record it.
It's a recording issue, it's a logistical issue, it's financial. Finding, not every neighborhood has a place large enough to do this. So, but those aren't insurmountable, but they're barriers. But it's not, yeah. Bettina?
In terms of where do we go from here, I think a couple things we talked a little bit about tonight, but I just want to reiterate. I personally think the people that rolled off just by circumstance of their 2-year term could be invited back for more years. I think that how people roll off and the process, because it was a little bit disconnected, like I would like to see if somebody is rolling off, that we have a formal way to offboard them, celebrate them for their term of service, that sort of thing. And that may not be written into anything that's going on right now. And to keeping a roster so we know who's rolling off, so that there's management, like where there's now nobody in the Health and Human Services, that could have been preempted by filling some people, like backfilling, so that there, even if all those people went off, there was a whole bunch of others that replaced them instead of having this big hole that's now months old. So I think these sorts of procedural things need to be addressed as well.
Okay. Consensus on that as well? Okay. So, we'll reach out to the neighborhoods. Invite anybody you know who was here to reapply. We've got to do, Gene, is your placard up for? Oh. Okay. This is the community's thing. And so, yes, Mary Ellen?
Is, for reapply, is it those whose terms ended in 24?
Yes.
Or do you, like, mine apparently is 25, so I don't have to reapply if I'm interested? Okay, thank you.
If,
And I was told I'm already on file, so I think I'm done.
I think we had
No.
paused a lot of those applications that came in because we didn't know what was gonna happen with these committees. So some of that was, I was asked to look at the committees and I didn't know what direction the council wanted to go. So I don't wanna reappoint somebody and then a month later be like, we disbanded your committee. So, we are gonna go through that kind of backlog. I'd say we also still need to I need to go back to the council and figure out, like, what do they want to do with these other committees? Are they becoming subcommittees to hear what? So some of that is, we're trying to sort of figure out what the plan is, so when people are applying, they really know what they're applying for. But we're working on that, clearly.
and so, yes, Mary Ellen?
I have loved having the people that were on the CAC, but are no longer on the CAC, participate as if they were on the CAC.
Yes, thank you
it's given us
for
a
letting
much
us do
more
that.
robust,
We appreciate it.
Meeting.
Because of the transition and the, disclarity over who's doing what, I specifically asked that people whose terms had retired, get invited. to participate. And send, and, yeah, and we sent out the applications again. So, Bettina?
Just one more procedural thing is, I do think we need to bring in fresh blood, so to speak. So that has to be considered as well, right? So if somebody new wants to take my position, then I can roll on to something else, right? So that it's not just always like, you don't want me here 10 years, right? It's got to have some degree of churning to get the value of people. Because this is the intellectual capital.
We did recruit my successor for the Marina district. We did it right, Tina, we put a new succession.
Well, do we want to keep the term limit? I mean, essentially, it's a 2-year term. Do we want?
I don't know if I want to keep the term limit. I just want to, like, now that we're rebooting for, again, that be a consideration. If there is somebody really chomping at the bit that's brand new, why not have them come on, right?
Okay.
I
Go
love
ahead.
that we're combining all this stuff together. I think a bunch of people that got on CAC probably didn't even know about the availability of some of these other committees, and some of those other committees didn't know, oh, you mean there's an arts commission in this city, or there's a senior services commission? So I think having them all together under this big umbrella it's a constant reminder of all the availability that's out there for everybody who wants to pour in. So that's what I love about them all.
Do you, and Harry and Jean, do you think your colleagues will feel the same way as how this discussion all went, that this was a great idea to put the CAC in conjunction with these subcommittees and to have us interact with one another? Do you think that's gonna fly? I hope so.
I would place my bets on a majority.
Yeah. Yes.
We hear you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
what I would. Would you, Jean, would you? I would place my bets that definitely a majority of the council would agree with this.
Yeah.
If I were a betting man, but I'm neither one.
Okay. Yeah. So, next meeting date. This is the first Monday of the month, or first Wednesday of the month. I get confused. It's the first Wednesday of the month. Is, if we just set the first Monday of the month as our meeting date. Wednesday. Wow, I don't know. It's been a long week so far.
Yeah.
Is that something that works? That would give us a regular day that people could
That would
plan
be
on.
nice, yeah.
We might cancel, I'm sorry.
I would prefer the 4th, the way we had it before, because there's conflict, especially on the first day.
Holiday, especially because of what?
We can't hear you. You're, gotta turn your mic on and talk to it.
I'm suggesting that, we've had it the 4th Wednesday of the month, and it's, I think there's fewer conflicts when we do it there rather than the first Wednesday. Because a lot of groups do meet the first Wednesday. I was supposed to be at 2 other meetings tonight. So, 4th I think works, better for people that aren't participating in other.
Fourth Wednesday?
4th Wednesday, yeah.
Any heartburn with that?
Yeah, I can drop off. I have standing work, no big deal, but.
Well, that's just,
No, that's what, big committees, it's gonna happen.
do we think the 4th Wednesday is gonna be better for most?
Yeah,
I guess.
A lot of things
Judging
get pushed
from
to the front of the month, so.
Judging from the people who said they couldn't come tonight because there were other things going on, it sort of sounded like it. Whereas they could come last week, which was the 4th Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The only holiday
Christmas,
conflict is
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving and Christmas, so
Yeah, not a big
We
deal.
don't meet then anyway.
work around that.
And we can work around
We've
those.
done
So,
our budget by then.
Okay.
4th Wednesday of the month. I'm hearing a consensus. If speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Okay, so now, are we gonna meet on the 4th Wednesday of April?
No,
Is that too soon?
that's a long-
And then that puts us way out
To the end of May.
to the end of May.
But Catherine has work to do, so there'll be stuff for us.
Okay? Yeah.
There'll be stuff for us to talk about in May, a lot.
For
us
strategic
to talk
plan, we might need to.
And you'll have the committee formalized by then.
I don't know that Catherine will have anything.
I can't predict the council, so
Oh, we can.
I would love to, but I think by fourth meeting in May, yes, I think I will have been able to finish talking to the Arts Commission, talk to the council, hopefully get something drafted. Fourth Wednesday of April, I don't anticipate we'll have that ready yet, but you can talk about other items.
There are
Magda?
5 Wednesdays in April, so we could meet the 5th Wednesday in April.
Yeah,
For April, just for this month, because we are meeting today, so that will give us more time.
I don't know that that's gonna make,
And that doesn't help much.
We don't wanna be greedy either. I mean, originally, this was 3 or 4 times a year. We love that you want to meet more. We're grateful, but we don't wanna be greedy.
well, and we won't have Catherine every time.
That's true.
You know, so, and we probably will not have Catherine if we meet again in April. She does have a
I think
life.
we need to figure out a permanent staff person though to help this group.
Yeah.
So let us offline talk about that.
Okay. But my preference is to come back for the fourth Wednesday in April as our next meeting date and just keep that going throughout the year.
Sure, give it a shot.
As long as we have an agenda
Okay.
and a reason to meet.
We will.
Purposeful meeting. Okay.
Yes. We'll have plenty of stuff to talk about.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
Otherwise, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So move. And do I have a second?
Second?
There it is. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.